Okay, let's go ahead and give a check on the sound. Commissioner Lee, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can. Ben Vanoy, Adam Beck, can you hear us?
I can hear you, Commissioner. I can hear you, Commissioner.
Okay, I think we are good then. Then we will welcome everyone for today's commission meeting. And as tradition, we have had a prayer reading or thought offered by a volunteer and someone lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Linda Walton has volunteered to lead us in invocation, and we'd like to invite someone to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance after. Thank you, ma'am.
I just wanted to tell you on behalf of the interfaith groups in the Valley, we have had a difficult time the past 2 or 3 years, and we've gone from about 42 congregations or denominations down to about 8. And so anything that we can do to help you guys, please know that we will do the best we can. But it's a little squeaky right now, but I just wanted to let you know about that. And so let's pray together.
Thank you.
Our dear Father in heaven, we are so grateful to have the right to be here, to have a flag that we can salute, to have a country that we can believe in, and a state and a county and various cities. We have so many blessings that as we look around the world, Father, we didn't realize how lucky we have it. And even though it's still difficult to run a county, we pray, Father, that you will be with each commissioner, with every staff member, with all of the sheriffs, with all of the other individuals that are having to do very difficult things, maybe with cut budgets or whatever it might be, Father. And we just pray also that you will give wisdom today to the commissioners as they make decisions, that they will go forward and make a big difference in this community. Father, we pray for all of the other counties in the state and all the other states in the union and our union. A lot of challenges on every level, Father, as you know. And we just pray, Father, that you will give us wisdom and give us the gumption to do the right thing. We pray, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Linda. Would you identify yourself? Let us know your name.
Oh, my name is Jennifer Young. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can you get that screen up? He's working on the screen. Gotta love technology. Yeah, we could. Yeah. So how long would it be? Alice, will it, when, everything's in timing. If it goes on YouTube, it'd be a blank screen then, right? No? It will. It's just here. Okay. 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 I just want to make sure that the YouTube won't be affected by this. Okay. If we, what we'll do to start off today is, as we have been doing, is we'll go through consent agenda items first. That means we'll go through the regular agenda, and those that we have no questions, we've already gone through the items. We've already talked to department heads that were affected by this and put it forward. If we have no questions, then we'll check those off, and those go to our consent, meaning they have been approved. And then we will then our work session. When that finishes, we will then go to the regular agenda, what's left that we don't have, that we want to have additional discussions over. And pending on how long it takes to get the screen set up, we might move the mosquito abatement to second, so that way, hopefully by then, we can have the screen up and everyone can see the slides you've prepared. Okay, with that, Commissioner Lee, you're still here, I take it?
Yes, I am.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and look at regular agenda items 1 through 10. Are there any to be held? I've asked Bryce to talk on number 4.
Okay, that was the only one I had marked. Number 4.
4, okay. So that'll be for both of us then, okay? Are there any others that you see, Commissioner Lee, for 1 through 10?
No, none for me.
Okay. Then we will go through 11 through 20. Are there any that we want to hold?
I had none.
None for me.
None for you. I have none. So we will now go through items 21 through 30.
I had none.
None for me.
None for you. I have none. So then that's good for that. We'll now go at number 31 through 40. I contacted Public Works for 31, the memo for surplus disposal of kitchen equipment. It should have read approval for surplus or disposal of kitchen equipment from food services. So I'll add that as additional insight.
Okay. I had none other than that, but on 31 to 40.
Okay? Commissioner Lee, do you have anything that you want to hold?
I do not on that.
Okay, 31 to 40, we're good. Okay, then we head down to 41. A lot of reading the last few days.
Yep.
Through 50, are there any that we want to hold on those?
I had a couple of questions on 45.
Number 45, Commissioner Gardner. Okay,
I don't have any.
okay. And then 51 through 60. I'll note that 57 has been advised by the Civil Division that we continue that 1 week through July 20th.
I don't have any.
Nope, I don't have any.
Okay. And then 57 will be continued 1 week. Then we go to 61 through 71.
I have none.
It was old 61.
Would you say that again?
Old 61.
Hold 61. Okay.
Yes.
Hold 61 for Commissioner Lee. And I understand from HR there are no closed session items for the personnel side of things, civil.
That's correct. For personnel, we recommend you continue that for a week. I'll hold that one next week with the continuation of item number 57.
Okay.
Although I am going to recommend that we hold 75 today and talk about some pending litigation updates.
Okay, but we don't need 72 or 73 or 74, just 75.
Okay.
That's correct.
Thank you.
So we'll strike 72, 73, 74, and hold 75 for closed session. Commissioner Lee, are you aware of any closed items that Civil has not addressed?
I don't have any items to be held there.
All right. I think that's it. Alice, would you review what we just did?
Yes, I'm sorry, I was working on the screen at the first. I don't know what you put for 1 through 10. Did
Okay.
you have any held?
1 through 10, we had held 4
Okay,
for discussion.
that's the only one.
That's the only one for 1 through 10.
All right.
11
I have the rest. So.
Oh, you have? Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so I have us holding number 4 and are approving 31, just adding that approval for memo for surplus.
Yes.
Holding number 45, continuing 57 for 1 week, which is July 20th, holding 61. And then as far as the closed meetings, we're striking 72, 73, 74, and holding as stated 75.
That's correct. Thank you. And we have the screen up. We're good? Okay,
Thank you.
with that, then maybe we'll do mosquito abatement after all first, if we're ready to do that.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Dan Miller. I'm the Director for the Utah County Mosquito Abatement Division as part of the Health Department. We are excited to be here with you to present, or at least an idea for your consideration. A little history. In 2015, we came to the decision makers of the county with an idea to test mosquito populations for West Nile and other mosquito-borne diseases. At that point, we were running a simple test in our lab. It was relatively expensive. We were also sending up the extra mosquitoes that were caught to the state lab, which they had used a grant but had raised the funds for that. The grant had run out, and so cost had increased. It was being sent to us. And so with that, we proposed to have a qPCR machine purchased by the county, placed in our lab to be able to protect the public and in a timely manner so that we weren't waiting a week or two for results, but we were getting back within several hours so we could act upon the presence of West Nile and the mosquito populations. We're also, with that, we're able to, over the last 6 years, develop some innovative ways to use this equipment to better understand and control mosquito populations in our county. All of this for the savings of taxpayer dollars. And so we're coming to you again today with something very similar to that as an idea. The idea we'd like to explore with you is the use of an unmanned aerial vehicles, or more commonly known as drones. This is innovation that has helped us, hopefully, to save some local taxpayer dollars. It creates efficiency and effectiveness. That is, it reduces our labor costs, and it's a better method of delivery, the insecticides to the water, and it helps us fulfill our mission as a health department in protecting the public health. And there is a potential that with this, we can help other departments in the county to improve services to the public. And so some history or background of the current drone usage. We are using a drone. We are actually leasing a company that comes in. We pay them to treat so much per acre. And so I'd like to share with you just what we've discovered over the last 4 years that makes this really quite effective for us. First of all, in 2018, we did not have any drone usage. We treated, and when I give these numbers, this is treatment of larvae. The larva is in the water. It's much more effective to find the mosquitoes in the larva and treat them there versus letting them hatch out and get into the air on the wing. We can kill 95 to 100% of the mosquito in the larva populations. We're only killing about 10 to 15% in the aerial because of the areas that we have to cover. And so we really try hard to treat those, but in the acreage treated in 2018 was 786 acres. 631 of those were by hand, 155 by an ATV. And then obviously we didn't have any drone usage at that point. 2019, we were able to treat about 9 acres with the drone. We traded about 1,200 acres. 2020, we were able to budget enough to treat a little over 100 acres. And in 2021, we kind of bought all in with the help of the commission. The commissioners were able to get enough money to treat more by air. That we treated 1,600, almost 1,700 acres that particular last year, which you can see doubled the amount of acreage that we are covering, thus being much more effective in treating the mosquitoes within our county and being able to control those much more easily. This is a comparison of treatment time. Just if you look kind of at the middle one, which gives you a 10-acre treatment. If you were to go out by hand, that is just to walk through a field and treat, it would take about 10 hours for an individual to treat that 10 acres. If we use an ATV, it would take them 2.5 hours. If we use a drone, it takes about 8 minutes. So obviously the efficiency is there. There is the cost of using the drone, and those costs are shown there. So hand and versus the drone are about the same. But the time savings is overwhelming as we see this here. In 2017, it took us about, we averaged about 6.27 employee hours to treat an acre. That went up to 8.55 just because of the circumstances and the difficulty there. But you can see it averaged around, between 5 and 8 acres is what, hours to treat an acre. In 2021, that fell to 1.94 hours per acre treatment. And in this year, of so much of what we've done so far, it's fallen even more to just under 1.5 man hours per acre. Much more efficient, much more effective way of using the resources that we have for us. This has become, and this really was kind of an unintended consequence. I didn't really think this would happen. But as I looked at the numbers, it became very clear that we were able to do more with less resources, which we thought was really good. Another thing that we wanted to share with you is that in 2020, we had a particular area down by Goshen Elementary that was inundated by mosquitoes. There's lots of large fields, salt marshes all around them, around this elementary school. We did our best to treat those, but in 2020, we trapped almost 4,600 mosquitoes. In 2021, we trapped only 697. What we did is we added drone application to the area next to the trap. We treated it 3 times with the drone. We treated 81 acres, 404 pounds of the Vectomax, which is the chemical at the rate of 5 pounds per acre. We decreased the total number of mosquitoes in that trap by almost 4,000 mosquitoes, making it much more safe and more comfortable for the children that were attending school, especially in the late summer or early summer, the late fall or spring, and then late fall. We're able to really make a difference in that particular area. There may be other factors that came into play, but we really like to feel like that was the drone that did that. We're actually seeing that happen again. We had a large number of mosquitoes in that particular trap. We were able to treat really heavily last week with the drone, and with that, the numbers fell really almost to a quarter of what they were before. So it's becoming a very effective tool in helping us in the work that we do. So as we look forward, everything looks rosy and great. We budgeted in 2022 $31,000 for drone usage, which is treating 22,000 acres at $15.85 an acre. But the company we're working with came to us this year and asked us for a cost increase. We kind of talked them out of that, but that's not going to happen next year. So we're looking at having an increase to about $24 per acre. You can see that's fairly extensive. So if that would increase if we didn't do any more acreage to 48,000 versus 31. We would like to increase our acreage to 2,500 acres because we do see that need, especially this year as we're getting about halfway through what we had, which would cost us about $60,000 at the new rate per acre, which is pretty expensive. So one of our solutions, which we bring to you today, that we'd like to, that this work session's about, is that we take that $60,000 that we would budget for just the use of the drone, that's the leasing of the drone and the pilot, and we actually use it to purchase a drone. The drone that we would like to purchase has a larger payload, has the ability to apply granules, which we're using, also would have the ability to apply liquid that other departments use or we could use. It also would have the ability to do ultra-low volume fogging, which would allow us to be very targeted in the areas, especially in treating for adult mosquitoes. The life of a drone is about 10 years, is what I'm told. So the cost saving over the 10 years just between releasing the drone service and owning the drone is between well, you can see almost, well, about $500,000 over the 10-year period of time that we would pay. Also, we've discovered that we're much more efficient, and so we can actually reduce our seasonal employees by 2. So that would save us around $17,000 because of the use of the drone. All of these are savings that are associated with it.
Does this, Dan, does this include the savings you're referring to, include operating the drone, maintenance of the drone?
No, it doesn't. This is just looking at that, and I have that here for you. One of the things that we need to look at is that we need to have a pilot. We can't really hire seasonal people to do this. Yeah. Pilots need to have licensures. They have to be some training. I don't feel comfortable at having, a seasonal college student or graduate go out and fly a $60,000 drone and let that be the thing that they learn on. So I'd like to make sure we had someone who was there. That probably would, to get someone that was that level of certification and that skill level, would need to make that a full-time position. Obviously, we're not using them in the winter months. We could probably fill their use really easily for 6 months, 7 months with maintenance and taking care of it. But we've also looked at other departments within the county assessor's office we could talk to GIS, IT, Public Works. They may find use of the pilot or even of the drone in their off season. We also, within our environmental health department, within the health department, they've expressed interest in being able to use the drone to be more effective in what they do. So we could actually share that cost with other departments to be able to have kind of a win-win outcome for everyone.
Have you already spoken to those other departments?
I've talked with the assessors. I have not talked with the GIS or Public Works. I have talked to environmental health and health promotion. They're all very interested in being involved with that. But before we really went forward, we wanted to make sure to see where you were and how you felt about all of this as we went forward. And we're really looking at trying to implement this in the next year's budget. So we're trying to get this in front of you so you can see that. Here's the cost that you talked about, Commissioner. What would it cost to hold the whole thing? Pilot cost, I talked to HR. This is what they told me. Those kind of the average rate of a pilot would be about $55,000 a year plus benefits. Mm-hmm. So the drone cost is $60,000 plus the pilot cost. This is over 10 years, $550,000. Maintenance costs would be about $15,000 a year, which is a total cost of $625,000 over 10 years. We would save $600,000 because we wouldn't be paying every year for the drones leasing. The salary savings from the full-time, the resident or seasonal employees would be $176,000, so we'd save about $776,000. So over 10 years, it would be about $150,000 savings, or real savings per year is about $15,000 if we were able to do this. And so that's kind of the direction that we were thinking, because it was, in the long run, a cost savings. The last slide I think I have for you deals with this, and it's really a breakdown, more detailed, and we don't need to go through everything that's here. The first year, 2023, it would cost us about $48,000 over and above what we have, would be normally spending or budgeting for. After that, we're saving $12,000 or so every year, for a grand total of $67,000 saving in a 10-year period of time. So the top one is if we lease the drone. The top blue segment is what it would cost. The middle green one is what it would cost if we purchased the drone. And then the bottom one is the difference between the two.
So, Dan, I have a question.
Please.
Well, first off, thank you, for going through this. I think this is a great example of starting with a pilot program that we looked at and starting it small to make sure it proved itself before we went all the way. So I applaud you for going through and giving us the analysis that makes more sense as we go along the way. The question I have when you were referring to the $15,000 of savings, per year over a 10-year period, being that $150,000. Have you calculated in, is that, I'm assuming, without looking at any charts on that, I'm assuming that is the total cost of the pilot on a yearly basis, and of course the purchase of the drone. But if you're offsetting that pilot in use with other departments, does that number actually increase in savings because now we're magnifying or leveraging in other departments which could be used?
Yeah, Commissioner Lee, that's a great point. This is just looking at it as though I were operating only within the health department. If we use this for other departments, the pilot especially, that would magnify the increasing the cost savings over that. And it would allow us to do even more innovative things. One of the things that I found extremely interesting is that as we, back at that very beginning, as we started using the qPCR machine, we were just testing for West Nile and for those other diseases. We have been able to expand the use of that machine in areas that we never even dreamed possible or even thought of because of it being available to us. So it's enhanced what we do within mosquito abatement as far as control. We're using it in looking at the age of mosquitoes that are trapped. We're looking at determining species of hard species to identify. So we're better able to serve the public because of it. And I really believe that something like this would allow us to have a greater use in a lot of different areas that we're not even thinking of because it's now available to
Yeah, I'm
us.
also noticing that like the employee
And I
savings.
believe that too, because I know that you can't fly a plane that close to houses or anything of that nature. And so that's the reason why I was in favor of it, and I continue to be in favor of this because it gives us so much more flexibility over what needs to be done and getting into areas which we never could get to before.
Right.
Yeah, and also looking at it, you have your employee savings, you have that as a static rate over the next 10 years. I would be thrilled if we didn't have to pay time-limited employees any more money 10
Right.
years from now than we do today. But the fact that the inflation this month was 9.1%, I suspect that those costs over time would increase, and therefore the savings of not having to hire those people would increase as
Yeah,
well.
exactly.
So I think your estimated savings, like Commissioner Lee pointed out, doesn't even include sharing this employee with other departments. But beyond that, just the cost of labor will be significantly more expensive moving forward.
Yeah, and that was, I was trying to be conservative with it.
Yeah,
So,
you did a very good conservative job here.
okay, so thank you.
You'll be able to multitask that drone and pilot in a lot of ways.
Oh, yes, yeah,
I think of right at the top of my head, but there are probably other options that we haven't even thought about
yeah,
yet.
exactly.
And the maintenance part, I would take that includes the insurance, but also the upkeep of the
Right.
drone and all of that together.
Yeah, that was part, when I talked to the people who sell the drones, this is the numbers that they gave me.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
any other questions?
I have none. Commissioner Lee, do you have any?
No, thank you, Dan.
Thank you, and thank you for all your support over the time. Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Dan.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Okay, we'll now have an work session item to review the draft equipment replacement policy.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Rudy Livingston, as you well know, but for the public's knowledge, I'm the budget manager for the county. When I started with Utah County a couple of years ago, I did a tour of several of the department facilities and things. And as we were going on some of the tours, it became very apparent that we had a problem that we needed to address. And that was that there were many items of equipment that had not been where we were not setting aside any amount of money for future replacement. So I brought that back to our department, and we started talking about that a little bit. And as we got into our budget discussions later on that year, working with Commissioner Gardner, who was at that time the clerk auditor, and our team in the auditor's office, as well as Commissioner Ainge and I believe Commissioner Ivy was a little bit part of that meeting. We talked about some ways that we could resolve this problem, and we decided that it would be advantageous for the county to provide for the future replacement of all equipment. Some of the things that were left off were things that were donated to us that were $500,000 items. And the position at the day was that we would just go ahead and find donations at a future time, which isn't necessarily realistic. So we tried to solve a problem. We got together and started working on this. And we looked at it. We basically determined that we have several different types of assets. We have the capital assets, which are the large, infrastructure type items. And we'd already started putting together a capital improvement program, but we expanded that and continued on that and made that much more viable. We've moved some things into there. We looked at some of these items were vehicles, and it didn't make any sense why these would not be included in our motor pool operations. And then we had some other items that were, just regular equipment. And so we looked at the various pieces and we thought, you know what, let's find a way that we can put money aside for this. Initially, we believed that it was appropriate that we'd put some of our budget savings for, I believe it was 2020, into 2021's budget for this. And that was what we were originally planning to do. And then we started consulting with our financial team, and we realized that there are some accounting rules that prohibited us from just parking money in an internal service fund. So we have had to change a little bit. But what we wanted to do was we wanted to get a program going so that we could take care of our equipment. And we started this program. We actually started functioning with this program in 2021, but we haven't had a policy. And so we have been to work putting together a policy that would govern the operation of this program. And the policy, it has a few main objectives. The first one is to standardize replacement criteria and guidelines for equipment. The second is to provide a mechanism by which funding for equipment replacement is available in advance of the need, and through establishment of a replacement reserve in the internal service fund. The third one is to provide departments with reliable and up-to-date equipment to assist them in meeting their needs. And that's one of the things that we found too, is that because departments felt that they had to beg the commission every year for money to replace anything, that they weren't getting replaced, and so the equipment was getting older and older. We wanted to provide for a timely acquisition and disposal of equipment to maximize the resources available for meeting the equipment needs, and also to smooth the outflow of funding for essential equipment and the rotation of income and outgoing equipment throughout the year. And then we want to reduce the maintenance cost by eliminating the old expensive equipment. So what we have developed this criteria, the basic criteria for this policy is that it would apply to assets that individually cost over $5,000 and that have a lifespan of 4 years or more. We could have done it shorter period, but if we're only doing it 1 year or whatever, it's like, why bother with it, because you've got things going through the budget at that time. We wanted to apply this to items that were not purchased through an internal service fund. So it wouldn't apply to vehicles. It wouldn't apply to CDUs. It wouldn't apply to all the different things that are being serviced by the internal service funds. And the third piece of this is we wanted to include the copier replacement in this policy. Even though many of the copiers do not have a value nowadays, I was really surprised when we got our latest agreement with Les Olson and saw the cost of copiers. I'm used to replacing them at $10,000 to $20,000 a piece. Well, some of them have actually gotten down below $5,000 each. But in order to continue to replace them on an orderly manner in a time frame that fits their useful life, we felt that it was important for us to include those into this equipment replacement program. So we wanted to do this, and we put a few things into here so that the last couple of years in the
Rudy,
budget.
can I ask a question about that real
Yes.
quick? Does that include all copiers, including the specialized ones like in the health department for birth certificates, or because those are specialized, would they be separate?
Well, the specialized ones, as long as they're not grant funded, they can be included in here. And if they're over $5,000, they're probably included in the equipment replacement outside of the copiers because they are specialized. They're not through that Les Olson contract.
Okay.
Yeah, we want to be able to apply this to every eligible piece of equipment.
Okay.
In the last 2 years, as we've gone through the budget, we've gone through this process of looking and saying, what can we put into the equipment replacement fund? What can we do this? Because we felt that it was appropriate for us to have this fund, and we also didn't want to overly burden the general fund with these things. Now, we've come to the realization that because we can't park a bunch of money in there, we will have to put new additions into the individual annual budgets to cover the cost of that, but that's only new things. Anything that's already in the plan will continue to be replaced on an orderly method, like we do with the vehicles in the motor pool operation. So we're talking about only, if somebody wants to have a new piece of equipment that was not included in the equipment replacement program already, then we would have to provide some money in the budget for that. And it would be specialized to be, so it doesn't get confused with all the other budgetary items. It would be identified as equipment replacement. And so we've changed our budget policy this year that we've sent out documents. We're requiring each department that has equipment they anticipate replacing this next year to provide that to us separate from their other budget asks, because we're not going to include that in all of the asks. We're going to have a separate category for that we will have you look at individually. So that's really the basics of what we're looking to do. We're really just trying to make the process more efficient, more predictable, and to take care of the equipment that we have in the county, because it's really important.
So if it's not part of the normal ask, you're going to have a separate category for all
Correct.
type of thing?
Yeah.
And it'll be, each line will be identified to that particular department?
Yeah, absolutely. It'll show the department, it'll show the equipment that they're replacing. I mean, we ran into a couple of issues this last year because we didn't have policies where we said, well, $5,000. So, not to pick on the sheriffs, but they gave us said they need some specialized surveillance equipment that was $6,000. Well, when we started getting the individual invoices, it was 2 at $500 and 1 at 200, $1,000 and that.
Right.
We're looking at, because those kind of costs can be generally borne by the department.
Right.
We're looking at the bigger stuff.
So in theory, a drone.
A drone would be in there as long as it's not serviced by one of the other
And we know
departments.
that it has a 10-year lifespan.
Yeah.
Therefore, we should
Yeah.
know that in 10 years, we need to replace it.
Well, it's like the other thing that I'm looking at doing, but it's really kind of apart from this, is I want to revise some of the CIP, because some of the things that we have in CIP right now, like an airplane, really probably don't belong in CIP. They belong in equipment, even though they're large dollar items. So we're going to be looking at, but that's a separate discussion. But yeah, you're absolutely right, Commissioner. That's what we're trying to do, because it's going to come in. We have this initial cost, but then we're going to put money away every single year for the next 10 years. So when we have to replace it, we're going to have money there to cover that, and we don't have to come asking the commission for more money. So we're trying to make it more manageable for the county.
Yeah, I think it would make sense that we would modify the CIP and the motor pool recapitalization as we bring these new programs on board. Then we would adjust for those other areas. So I could see there being some modifications needed in the next year or two.
Yeah, and that's what we actually did. I mean, the really good news is, we have this heavy-duty SWAT equipment that we got. Well, it's now being recapitalized in motor pool because we pushed it into there, so we got them to take care of that, and well as a lot of other things. So we have been really active in making sure that we're starting to look out for our future needs, and that's what I want to do. I want to leave this county better when I leave than when I started here.
And then
whenever that might be.
You won't be recapitalized for another 10 years, Rudy.
I will not be. So I guess I'm around for 10 years, and then we'll just put some money towards the next guy, right?
And for the general public consumption, the CIP means capital improvement program. So
Yeah.
these are high-end dollar buildings and equipment that we have that
Right.
we have to refund or be ready to replace in a few years' time.
Yeah, we made progress in modifying that program too. So
did.
we're just making things better, and that's what we want to do. So today we can't make a decision on any of this stuff, but I really wanted to get it before the commissioners so that you could be reviewing this, so that hopefully within the next month or so we might be able to get this on the agenda for an actual action. What I would request of the commissioners that you look at this and send me any questions that you may have individually, so I can look at it, so we don't have an issue with meeting together. But send me any questions or concerns, and then we can have some correspondence. The departments have been already working towards this, and they're looking forward to having a policy, because I constantly am getting questions. Well, does this apply? Does this not apply? So we want to get this going so that we can have it in place before this year's budget comes before you for adoption.
Okay. Just as a heads up, one of the questions I'm going to have is basically what is the interchange between the equipment replacement fund, the CIP, the recapitalization in motor pool, as well as IT,
Okay.
right? So basically, because some of those may need to be modified based on this, which obviously I support this direction.
Yeah.
and recognize that this makes us more fiscally sound moving forward. It gives us good fiscal responsibility moving forward and accountability, which I think both are fantastic in government. But I am going to want to know, how is this going to affect those things that are currently in motor pool or currently in the CIP? And do we need to make some adjustments to either A, those accounts, or B, those policies?
You bet.
In order to make sure that we have an area.
Absolutely. And we've already been looking at some of them, and we'll continue to look at the other ones because we want them, they function together but separate. So, I mean, because we want to get the right type of assets.
It's okay if we make an adjustment in a year from now. We found that there was a crack that something slipped between, and we have to make adjustments to fill that crack.
Yeah.
That's fine. Those
This
are
not-
going to be my questions.
Yep.
So
Not-
just look at that.
Not set in stone. It's a living document that we can modify as our needs are identified, as we have done with the CIP this last year, right?
Yep, sounds
And so
great.
that's what we're looking to do. So thank you. Yeah,
Thanks, Rudy.
whatever we can do to make it better.
Yeah, and what's remarkable is that things change, like the drone usage now for mosquitoes as opposed to walking out there with an
Right.
E-high or with ATVs or even fixed-wing aircraft. So we're constantly changing.
Yeah, I got
That's why this is a living document. We'll adjust it.
And I'm not really particularly picky whether it goes into a drone, for example, would go into the CIP or equipment replacement or motor pool, just as long as it goes somewhere that gives us fiscal responsibility and fiscal accountability.
And that's exactly my focus as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rudy.
All right.
Okay, we're now to our regular agenda, and I asked for a comment on number 4 from our community development. And there's quite a few attachments with this particular document. If you could give us a summary and where this is going.
Sure. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Bryce Armstrong, Community Development. As Commissioner Sakovich mentioned, there's quite a few documents associated with this as backup to this item, but it's relatively straightforward. I'll give you a little bit of background, some context to it, and kind of then explain what the item is before you today. So 2015, 2016, the Utah State Legislature changed the state code relative to land use, the land use code for counties. And it required that all counties in the state adopt what they called a resource management plan, specifically for public lands, which is a defined term in state code, and that be part of a county's general plan. And that resource management plan was to address 28, I think it was originally, separate elements, and come up with goals and policies relative to these different resources, they called them. So the state actually appropriated monies to each county to hire consultants, and we went through that process. Commissioner Lee was quite involved, was here and was involved with that process. And we adopted our general plan, our resource management plan. So now, fast forward to more recently, in the 2021 legislative session, the legislature tasked the Utah Public Lands Policy Coordination Office, PLPCO is kind of its acronym, to assist with updates to the county, to all county resource management plans, and also develop and update the state resource management plan. Specifically, well, I guess before I say that, in this process, the state only appropriated funds for the state plan to be updated and then to create draft language to be shared with the counties to utilize as part of their own processes, and then they hired someone to kind of reach out and help each county do that. Specifically, this effort in the 2021 legislative session was to address 5 specific areas: access to public lands, renewable energy resources, critical mineral resources, utility corridors, and pipelines and infrastructure. So that's kind of where we're at. And currently, the state reached out to us to kind of help us along to do this process. A little background on resource management plans, or general plans in general. Number one, they're only advisory, so they're not regulatory. They're advisory. And again, as I mentioned before, they're only applicable to public lands. And the state defines that, and it's quite specific, but in general, it's It's federal lands, BLM and Forest Service lands, and some state lands. Does not include state trust lands, but other state lands. And so those are the lands that this is really applicable to. The main goal of a resource management plan is to communicate or coordinate the county's desired outcomes on public lands with federal land management agencies. And as I understand it, and what was explained when we went through this process several years ago, the federal process must take into consideration all county resource management plans. So it's good to have that voice to come to the table when there's an action pending from the federal level, and have those policies and objectives in place. This process, the state's really hoping to kind of have a unified plan, of a unified voice. And so that's why they've created some draft language and then dispersed that to each county. And what we've done as staff is look through each of these items that were specified and kind of made sure that those aligned with Utah County's land use policies that we've already have adopted, and to integrate those.
So what you're saying, this helps us maintain the integrity of our policies and how the public lands are used in conjunction with state and federal interests.
Sure. Yeah.
So when you say we have a voice, so it helps establish what our intentions are for the lands.
Absolutely.
And
So
expectations are.
Say there's a federal action or desired action, land use action or project, and it relates to a certain element that we've defined in our resource management plan. They've got to come and look at our resource management plan and make sure that that or at least consider those plans as it relates to that desired use. A couple more items, and I'll.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, surely.
if I could.
Yes.
I can't overemphasize the importance of this plan. I think that sometimes we look at it as just a document that's out there, but the whole reason why we went through all that we did years ago to put this into place is because of the public land battle that we've had forever as we've become a state. And the federal government, as they look at how they're going to change, if we don't have a plan in place like this, then we're basically off the table. Then the NGOs have a lot more standing in what's going on, and they can just say, "Well, here's a plan that we have," and the federal government will follow it more than what the local government has when we actually have standing that's codified in law. And so, I am totally in favor of what's going on here, especially with access and renewable energies, critical mineral and utility corridors and pipelines. And that was part of the reason, if you remember back when we were having that conversation with Sitla and combining all that land down there in San Juan County, I felt like we were giving up a lot, because if we have access to that land, they can't just push us off and make federal monuments and everything else, all the way around all the time without at least conversing with us and talking with us. And so I am totally in support of adopting this ordinance, and amending our plan as it goes forward, because it is just critically important to us as a county and to the state as we move forward.
So, Commissioner Lee, have you then reviewed this thoroughly and looked at it? I know the reason I default to you is because you've got such a good experience with the public lands issue at both a federal level in your previous career as well as here. And so I, as a commissioner, rely heavily on your experience in that area. Have you looked through and revised this, and you think that, okay.
Yes. I am totally in favor of what we have there, and I think Bryce said it appropriately. We have to have a unified front. If we have a hopscotch type of a approach to it, that's why I think the draft language that is coming forward from the state is critical for all counties to just kind of lock arms with it. And so I'm totally in favor of the language that they have.
All right. Thank you for your work on that. I appreciate that.
Let me just finish up with a couple of quick items and then take any questions, if any. Commissioner Lee's exactly right. This is a very extremely valuable tool to have a voice in that process. It's extremely critical to all counties, especially those southern Utah counties that have such a large proportion of their lands as public lands. For your information, in Utah County, approximately 40% of the county is federal public lands, and then Another 14% is state property. Not all of that's designed as public lands, but we have a significant amount, so it is critical. Specific to this proposal, the Utah County already had elements related to energy resources, land access, and mineral resources. So we took what the state's proposal was and integrated that into those existing sections of our resource management plan. So there's 3 sections of the existing general plan. Section 12.16, 12.28, and 12.34 are being amended to incorporate these new changes, and that's what that red line was. And then the last 2 sections, 12.60 and 12.62, are new sections, pipelines and infrastructure and utility corridors. And so those would be adopted as in their entirety as was included in your backup.
Well, I can't understate the importance of what you just did, because at least we can, when someone comes in hostile to the Utah County and Utah as a whole, we can at least have an established footing and we're united, whereas we maybe not as united in the past.
Absolutely.
As 29 counties.
Well, I would say it also shows solidarity with our neighbor counties. They have more of a percentage.
Yeah.
Yes. Sorry, I said I was done in one more second. We did meet with Dylan Hoyt, who is the PLIPCO representative. I was hoping to have him here, maybe to answer any questions, but he's helping another county today. But we did meet with him, reviewed what we had incorporated, and he seemed to give us the thumbs up on that. Again, the state's plan was really aimed, their really main goal is to promote and keep the multiple use and sustainable yield practices on public lands that Utah's kind of really targeted as our goal.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Lee, did you have any other questions you want to bring up or comments?
No, but I would sure like to make a motion.
Please do.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that we adopt number 4 as stated.
Yeah, and the only questions I had is I wanted to ask Commissioner Lee if he had talked to them, because I didn't see any issues with what I saw, but I rely heavily on his expertise and experience in that area, and with him having, looked at that and approving of it, and I will second that motion.
Excellent. All in favor, say aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, that's 3-0, so that's been adopted. Thanks, Bryce. Thanks, Commissioner Lee and Gardner. Okay, the next item on our regular agenda is number
It's 45.
5. Commissioner Gardner.
Yeah, so I have some questions for Eric as he makes his way up to the podium. So I know this was a program that we had approved last year because the state legislature had put in the test to stay. And so this was the ability to help schools with that so we could keep kids in school as much as possible. But I thought that we were out of this test to stay emergency
We are.
declaration. So I'm wondering why this is necessary. And I did notice not only does it extend the length, but it increases the funding significantly. And I'm wondering what the purpose of that is if we are no longer in an emergency
Excellent
state.
question. The funding does come it's very broad and very general. So we have, as you know, several school nurses in our public schools that can help the schools with any burden that they might have that's related to this. So we, in working with the funding agency, the Department of Health and Human Services, used to be Utah Department of Health, recently merged July 1st, name change there, and asked if an increase of funds could help fund school nurses with any potential COVID need that might pop up with the schools. And so up to 20% of the school nurse's time could be lending support, like if so that the burden doesn't fall to the schools. If they're wondering if a child's sick, they can have that school nurse then triage, or also with surveillance and things like that. We're not in the testing business. We're not in the test to stay business.
So even though that the original intent of it, you're saying that the money can be used for other things to supplement the school
It
nurse
can
program.
absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
In fact, this can also help charter schools and private schools and things like that as well. We didn't utilize most of those funds last year. So we won't use it unless there's a need. We do anticipate using up to the 20% of the salaries of our school nurses, though, for the upcoming year for that purpose. So that's why you saw that big increase in total
Okay, so that's
funds.
20% of the school nurse's salary. Okay.
Yeah, it was that
That
increase.
makes sense.
Yeah, because it went from.
I was just like, I don't want to extend test to stay. I'm not a big fan of that program.
No.
Thought it was invasive, but we're utilizing the money for other things.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
That answers my question. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Lee, do you have any comments or observations you'd like to make on this item?
No, I'm fine with it.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve item number 45 then.
We have a second.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Right.
Aye, it passes 3-0. And now we are on Commissioner Gardner, number 61.
Yeah, Commissioner Lee was the one who wanted to hold that. I sponsored it, but this is just the Provo Rock Canyon Trailhead. I'll introduce it real quickly, and then Commissioner Lee can tell us why he wanted to hold it. We had a work session on this. We had people come in. It was presented to the TTAB board. These are travel and tourism dollars, not property tax dollars, but travel and tourism dollars that are dedicated specifically for recreation purposes. We can't use them for any other purpose. We will be using some of these funds to work in conjunction with a local conservancy group, Provo City, and a few other organizations to do trailhead enhancements for the Rock Canyon Trail. Most of this is parking, so that we can have a bigger parking lot for that commonly used recreation area.
And for public consumption, TTAB is Tax and Tourism Advisory Board. This is a body composed of volunteer business leaders in Utah County, and the commission is not part of that. They're invited to observe and listen, but they come back with the recommendations, yes or no, on every item that's presented to the TTAB to see if they could tap into some of the taxes that we pay when we go to a restaurant, a hotel, get a rental car, everything. And that's how we use it. And so they had recommended, and the commission approved this. It is before us to approve it now.
Right.
Commissioner Lee, do you have any additional comments or observations on this particular item?
Yeah, yes, I do. In looking down through this, obviously the program, we've invested a little bit into this in the past. There was a little bit of money that was sent there in this Rock Canyon area for the purchase of the property. Nevertheless, as it went through the TTAB, the process and listening to it, it's favorable. I could see that there was some excitement for it. One of the concerns I have, though, is that it goes above the 35% level for funding. That 35% level would be at $1,953,397, and so I feel comfortable with that. But there's another caveat that I want to throw out there that which kind of solidifies a lot more why I would be in favor of going that route, and that is that the Provo City sent out to its residents a questionnaire, a survey, basically asking them what they would like to see funded when it comes to some of their ARPA dollars, which they can use for parks and for enhancements, especially outdoor stuff. And so there was monies that they have available, and they're asking where that money should be spent. And I think that if they're asking their citizens where that money should be spent, if this is such a high priority for them, they should probably at least meet us at our 35% level, where it would be where we've been comfortable and be consistent.
Okay.
What was the difference there? Do you have that in front of you? If not, I can figure.
So it's it was at 47.6% at 2.658144, and I would be in favor of putting it at 1.9 or 1,953,397.
And that would put us at the 35%?
Yes.
Okay, so it will be a different amount than what's on the agenda, and then that's what we're available, can do at this setting. So do we have a motion then?
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion that we approve and authorize the agreement between Utah County and Provo City for Rock Canyon Trailhead enhancements, with the adjustment of the dollar amount being $1,953,397.
And again, that will be different than what's on the agenda, but that is perfectly within our purview to do it today. Commissioner Gardner, do you have a?
Yeah, I'll second.
No.
Oh.
We can change.
Yes.
Change that. We've always been able to do that.
Yep,
Yes.
yeah, we're good there.
I'm just reinforcing for those who are watching or listening.
Yeah. I will second that motion.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. That passes 3-0 then. Okay. Then that concludes, unless I missed something, our regular agenda items. We are now ready to go to close, and we'll take a break for a moment while we do that.
You do have public comments on the agenda if you want
You
to
know
take
what?
public comment.
I didn't intend to ignore anybody. Everyone stared at me. I'm glad that Ben spoke up. Are there any public comments on the items today? Yes, ma'am. Please come up forward if you would. Thank you, Ben.
Hi, I'm Tracy Laws. I have a question on 45. What, if I were wanting to dig into more details of exactly what that's entailing, where do I find that, and what exactly is going on beneath this one sentence?
Yeah, so more details in the public agenda system. There will be attachments to that, and it will show the agreement that is being modified. And basically, from the questions that I asked, what I gathered was that basically they're using a grant that they received from the state health department to supplement the salaries of our school nurses. So typically, with the school nurse program, the majority of their salary is paid by the school district, but those school nurses are actually employees of Utah County because we do all their training, and we supplement a portion of their salaries using our general fund, which basically means our property tax dollars. And from what I understood from the questions I asked is they're going to use a grant that was given last year for COVID-19 services. They've been given approval to utilize the money that wasn't spent on testing to supplement the salaries of those school nurses so that we don't use property tax dollars to do that. They'll use the existing grant to do that.
And I understand that. What I'm asking is I want to see it in writing, because with all that we've been dealing with over the last couple of years of people saying one thing and doing another, and when we're making approvals on certain things, I want to see it in writing so I know exactly what we're talking about and what's actually being approved, because I will not take somebody's word for it anymore.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely acceptable.
So that's where my question is, where do I find the actual documentation so I know what exactly is being approved?
Yeah, so it's on the public website where we post our public agenda. There will be an attachment on that website, and it will have the actual contract.
Okay, so if there's questions that come up after, the public reviews that information, and perhaps there's something that comes up, they're going, something's not right here, even though the commission has approved it, how does that get addressed?
You could address it directly back with us or with the health department.
So that can be changed?
Yeah, it can be modified and changed. So for example, if we go through the reading of the contract and there was something that we missed and you bring it to our attention, we could absolutely go through and modify that contract using the same process we modified it for today. We would look at the language we want changed, bring it back to a public meeting, and we would vote on it here.
Okay, so this approval is just preliminary?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, we could change it if you find something that you bring to our attention that we didn't like.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
I'm Sandra Van Bloom. Along with that, number 45. So what happens after this year, and you've approved this because they have this unused money, what happens to the salary after that, and who pays all that again? Because it's not going to go away. Once you get it, you don't usually ever get rid of it.
Right. So right now, we have budgeted those salaries are part of our base budget in our general fund.
But not with this added.
No, so we're not adding any new people. This just basically they'll cover those costs this year. So any of those costs that are deferred, for example, would go into our rainy day fund, and then we would pick up next year where we left off.
In other words, we won't use our normal funding for this. We'll offset the amount we're getting in grants and take that out of our normal funding process and move that out, put it off to the side, and use this to fill in its place.
But
We
then
wouldn't
you're gonna-
add-
Aren't these fundings grant funded?
No, he wants to cover the
positions?
salaries of the remaining salary of the school nurses, utilizing the grant.
But then it's coming out of the taxpayer fund again, because they're not going to get this new grant again.
Correct. So it would go back to where it was originally funded.
You're going to
out of.
go back. Okay, so their salary would go down back to what it was before.
No, it would still be the same. It's just that
Right.
we're augmenting the salaries.
Yeah, so we're not giving them additional salary.
Okay.
Yeah, they're not getting additional salary, but what we're doing is we're taking the little bit of money that would have been used to pay it, and we'll put that in a rainy day fund for the future.
Okay.
And then it will default back to the original source when it's done.
Okay, and then I had another question on agenda, I think it was the mosquito abatement thing.
If you'll forgive me for a quick interjection here as legal counsel to the county, I just want to remind the public and the commissioners that public comment's generally not interactive. It's not intended as a
I was
Q&A
thinking
kind
work
of
session. I
moment.
apologize.
But,
Oh.
I mean, it's the commissioners' meeting. If the chair of the commission wants to answer questions or wants the commissioners to answer questions,
you
they're
for the
welcome to. I just want the public to be aware that traditionally this is a time for public comment that may not get a response in this meeting.
Okay, but I still have questions.
You're welcome to
But they may
take
not
the time that they
answer.
give you to say whatever you'd
Okay.
like to say. They can answer if they want to, but they don't have to.
I was still in work
Okay,
session mode. Thank you, Ben. I apologize.
For drones, you also are going to have this replacement cost, and in 10 years supposedly, and you're going to have to take that out of the budget if you're going to do like you do a household budget. You're planning for this in 10 years. That's all I'm thinking is you're saying a replacement. We're going to replace in 10 years. Well, now you're going to have that cost also every year to put towards the replacement eventually.
I'll make an exception to the rules, but the 10-year plan that you saw, that is reducing what we're using what we're currently paying someone to do this services
Right.
for us. So we're taking it and applying it toward it. And then the other thing he brought out was that whoever the pilot is, the likelihood of that person being used by multiple departments and paid by existing funds that's there is very, very high. And so the money is already
understand that.
there.
Yeah, okay, I just thought you said it has a lifespan. And
Yes,
gonna-
it's
yeah.
a permanent
Okay,
part
and-
of our budget process.
Thank you. If you didn't want a drone flying over, if I didn't want a drone flying over my property for mosquito abatement, do I have the ability to say, I won't allow that drone over my property?
Right now, the focus has been on up to property lines, not over the houses, because in the past, we've used ATVs to drive into the muck and water lines and along the shorelines.
Right.
And people walking through, so that has been the focus. And there is, some of the dust does go into other properties, but it kills the
Because we do
mosquitoes.
have mosquito trucks drive down on
Yes.
our road all the time, and I'm going, I don't want them now being able to fly over my property and see everything on my property. That's all. Was mostly,
All
I
right,
think,
ma'am.
everything I had to comment about. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Well taken. All right, I'll go back to the, yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Sylvia Andrew. I'm a Provo resident. I just wanted to thank Amelia for her outstanding comment where she said in the mosquito abatement thing that she, realizes that inflation is 9.1% and how much it saves the county to not have to hire new people and to actually, do everything they can to retain employees, especially when they're working for the county and they're doing an excellent job. So I wanted to thank Amelia, you know, that I can see during these proceedings how you're really trying to be aware of the costs and to be smart about saving us taxpayers money. I just wanted to make that comment today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Bryce Brady. I live in Vineyard City. I appreciate everything that you guys do here on the commission, and I'm on the planning commission for my city, and so I know kind of the stuff you guys have to deal with a little bit. Something that I found out just earlier this week was that the county was planning on chip sealing Squaw Peak Road, and we try to be.
You do what again on Squaw Peak Road?
A chip sealing. It's a road surface treatment on Squaw Peak Road. Squaw Peak Road is heavily used for recreational purposes, and I understand with budgets and such that after a certain timeline, you chip seal the road to keep the road in good maintenance. Squaw Peak Road was paved about 20 years ago. Hasn't had any kind of surface treatments done to it. It is still in very good condition if you go and drive up it. A chip seal essentially adds an aggregate, a tar, and then an aggregate, and then a tar base again, and roughens the road considerably. Squaw Peak Road is closed during the winter, so having a rough road doesn't benefit for any kind of traction or any purposes of that sort, but it significantly decreases the rideability on bicycles, motorcycles, skateboards, and things like that. And I know that roads are generally considered, does it meet the budget? Does it meet the transportation requirements? And that's it. But Squaw Peak Road, with it being such a highly used recreational road, I think it needs to be considered in a different way. I know that I hope that it's not too late to stop any of this from happening and looking at different alternatives. But if that's possible, I think that would benefit the community in huge ways. There are few sports that young adults and youth can do unless they're in soccer or in school doing sports as team sports. Suicide rates and depression rates among young adults and teenagers is super high. So anything that we can do to promote recreation for those categories specifically, I think needs to be done. And again, thank you guys for your time. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I'll ask about that.
I don't see Richard Nielsen here. Do
No,
we know if
Richard
he is?
Nielsen will be out of reach the rest of this week.
Okay. Or
So-
Glenn Tanner or anyone from Public Works?
Glenn
Do we
is
know?
also out of town this week, so I'll follow up with him on that one.
Hi, my name's Riley Irvine. I'm from Springville, Utah. I'm here for the similar reason as Bryce Brady, who just spoke with you before me. Part of the information that became available to us about the upgrades and infrastructures that will be done at Squaw Peak has been difficult to gain access to. Part of my speaking and comment and request to you is the potential for the future access for that information from Public Works, Forest Service, really the entities that would be doing the work. I know in similar instances when there is work to be done in the public domain where the taxpayers will be using that area, that information being accessible to them is beneficial. So in regards to the concerns that we have about the work that's being done or planned to be done currently on the roadway, it's vital, I would say, for that information to be accessible to the public so that then they're able to have their input, come and make comments. So partially in notifying you all that moving forward, it would be of interest to potentially have it on the agenda so that we could perhaps more officially review everything that's on the table. But more importantly, I would like potential access to upcoming projects and things like that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great point.
Any other public comment? Seeing none. Anything online, Alice, that I might have missed? Commissioner Lee, do you have any final before we close this out? Okay, then we will then go to our closed session. Thank you, everyone.